Remember, we have been bringing you here live visuals of different heads of state as they arrive in the country. Some of them, of course, dignitaries landing at OR Tambo International and also the Waterkloof Air Force Base. And of course, Sophie Mokoena, the international news editor of the SABC, has been monitoring these particular arrivals and is on the line with us right now. Sophie, thank you so much again for your time. I do understand that this is the head of state of Tanzania possibly arriving.
Yes, indeed, you are correct, Pongi, where this is President Suluhu Hassan, the head of state of Tanzania. As you know, that Tanzania has been a friend to South Africa, not only now, but during exile years. You know that many South Africans lived in Tanzania, particularly the region of Morogoro, where you had the military camps where most of the ANC activists were trained, but including, of course, the PAC. You know that Tanzania will be taking over as the chair of the organ on politics, defense and security in the SADC region. And therefore, President Suluhu Hassan, the only woman president with executive powers in Africa, has arrived. She will be joining other heads of state and government tomorrow during that important inauguration at the Union Buildings in Pretoria. President Suluhu Hassan visited South Africa last year. You'd recall during her state visit, she indicated that Tanzania will continue to strengthen its relations with South Africa. The other important issue to note about Tanzania in particular, as I pointed out, that this is the country that supported the struggle in South Africa. The governing party in Tanzania, CCM, is a sister party to the African National Congress. And I think at this moment, if President Suluhu Hassan get that moment with President Cyril Ramaphosa, one thing that they will be talking about, perhaps during lunch, will be what transpired in South Africa, where the governing party, ANC, lost the majority and therefore now being compelled to form an inclusive government. And when I spoke to our colleague, Isaac Lukando, who was here in South Africa during elections, he traveled from Dar es Salaam to cover elections. He shared some important insight in terms of what was happening in South Africa, because at that time the writing was on the wall that the governing party ANC will not get 50+1. He pointed out that CCM of Tanzania at some point in time did experience a similar challenge, but they went back to the drawing boards, because at that time, I remember I covered those elections, I think 15 years ago, one of the leaders of CCM started his own party, and therefore he was contesting CCM. That led to the rupture in terms of CCM, and therefore they had to come up with a solution how to turn the situation around and strengthen CCM. And one thing that they did was to ensure that the party is decisive when there are issues of ill discipline in the party, something that the ANC experienced for some time now, where the center at times doesn't really hold, and which has led to where the ANC is today, with the formation of the Umkhonto weSizwe, a breakaway led by the former leader of the ANC, Jacob Zuma. And he said that they did experience a similar challenge, and they realized that the issue of discipline and the center holding is quite important. And since then, they quickly deal with challenges within the party so that there's synergy and cohesion, particularly during elections. And we saw CCM bringing in the late President Makafule, who was very firm and very disciplined and very administrative in terms of how he was dealing with issues. And he was able to strengthen CCM. And today CCM has gone back to the drawing boards, a much stronger party led by the first woman president, Dr. Sulu Hassan. And much as there are opposition parties in Tanzania, she has been able to ensure that the center does hold within CCM, Bongiwe.
And Sophie, of course, the issue, you know, when you think about Tanzania and South Africa, for example, and also that visit that you talk about, you know, last year, this is also one of those moments where we also got to speak about the issues of trading between these two particular countries as they were looking to see an increase in, you know, investment as well, and also just a broader development, economic development between the two countries as well.
Yes, President Samia Suluhu Hassan is determined to ensure that trade between South Africa and Tanzania does increase. You'd recall when she was on a state visit in South Africa, that's exactly what she spoke about. But also the cooperation. You would recall during Thabo Bester saga, South Africa was able to receive support from Tanzania during the extradition of Thabo Bester and Dr. Makudumani. That spoke to the security protocols of SADC, two countries implementing those agreements. And therefore, it's a clear indication that South Africa is really enjoying strong ties with Tanzania. And we know that, in fact, many people in Tanzania have been talking about, you know, this movement down south of people from the continent. Tanzania is discussing with South Africa because when the immigrants are coming to South Africa, whether looking for greener pastures or some of people coming here who are in exile because of the political challenges in their countries, they pass through Tanzania. And sometimes those who don't have papers, Tanzania is able to stop such movements, those people even before they arrive in South Africa. And therefore, I think there has been a good relationship between Tanzania and South Africa, Bongiwe.
And a lot of focus, of course, Sophie, even on her, as you spoke about, you know, her tenure so far, and also, you know, some of the opposition parties in the country. And there were high stakes, especially when you think about, you know, her predecessor, John Magufuli, in, you know, the passing there in 2021, his passing in 2021. A lot of people were looking to see, you know, how the country will then, you know, be carried forward. Will there be stability? What happens then? And a number of people say, as you say, that she's quite held on and there's a tight grip when it comes to the running of that country.
Yes, indeed, the center is holding, and I think good for women, particularly on the continent, because you know that we have regressed on the continent in terms of women leadership. She is currently the only woman president with executive powers. You do have a woman president in Ethiopia, but she is not the head of government. She is just ceremonial. But maybe with SWAPO, we'll see things changing. If SWAPO is able to win elections later this year with the candidate being a woman. But a clear demonstration, particularly by Samia Suluhu Hassan, that women can lead, and the center is holding in Tanzania, while on the other hand you have a vibrant opposition in that country. And I think it's some of issues that as a continent we can celebrate when women are able to lead, and lead with precision, but also being very decisive, as we see the officials of Air Force now moving towards that plane where we expect President Samia Suluhu Hassan. Dr. Naledi Pandor, the Minister of International Relations, here to receive Dr. Suluhu Hassan. Earlier on, she did receive the President of Mauritius. Quite an important and a historic moment. A minister responsible for foreign affairs in South Africa, a woman, and now also a head of state from Tanzania, a woman. I think these are some of historic visuals that we will have in our archives for generations to come. And at the moment, many people asking questions as to where to from here in relation to Dr. Naledi Pandor, who has led this Department of International Relations and Cooperation, as she is not in the list. But like I pointed out earlier on, the president can still decide, because he can choose two ministers who are not necessarily members of parliament. As we try to internalize that activity by cultural group, Basotho ke bao ka mogibo. Let's try and internalize this activity. President Samia Suluhu Hassan arriving in South Africa. She is going to be welcomed by Minister Naledi Pandor, as you can see. And that's the arrival of the head of state of Tanzania, Bongiwe.
And of course, Sophie, you think about, as you say, this quite, being a significant moment. We've seen various heads of state arrive. We've seen, Dennis Sassou Nguesso. We've also seen, the president of Nigeria. And we're seeing, of course, all of these dignitaries descend on South Africa. And this also speaks about the important moment that South Africa finds itself in, especially when you think of our positioning around the continent.
Yes, quite an important moment, those changes, and also historic in a sense that Africa is not a dark continent. You can see a smooth transition, as we can see now Dr. Naledi Pandor walking with President Samia Suluhu Hassan. You can have this kind of important transitions, and we saw that with Namibia after the passing on of President Hage Geingob, a smooth transition. And now South Africa, a governing party, a former liberation organization, accepting the results and quickly making a powerful statement that elections are not supposed to lead to killing of people or bloodshed or doom and gloom, but rather a handing over of power, and with precision, and also trying to find a way to ensure that the country is stable by talking and agreeing on an inclusive government. But South Africa is very lucky, because we've been in this for quite a long time. We were last to be liberated and therefore we've learned from other countries. You'd recall in 1994, there was an agreement in terms of sharing of power, and they borrowed that script. It might not be the same because at that time it was an interim constitution that compelled Madiba to do that, but now it's a different scenario with the constitution firmly in place. Now it's up to parties to follow the dictates of the constitution by ensuring that there's a smooth transition when you have had your elections. And I think that's the story that has to be celebrated, where you have a smooth transition, no eventualities, no fighting. We don't see people in the streets killing each other for power. Bonyewe.
And Sophie, I wonder then who is still due to arrive, because we know there's still activity as well at the OR Tambo International Airport and also where you are.
We expect the King of Eswatini, King Mswati, to arrive here at OR, not OR, at Waterkloof. You know that he is a head of state in that country. We also expect the president of the Democratic Republic of Congo around 9 p.m. tonight to arrive here. And of course, we were expecting the president of Mozambique, but it looks like he might be arriving tomorrow morning because some of the leaders will arrive tomorrow morning. You know that before Tanzania, it was Nigeria chairing also ECOWAS region. Bongiwe.
All right, Sophie, thank you so much for that update there. As we watch these developments there, that's the motorcade, that's the car that is carrying Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu Hassan. As of course, Sophie has been, monitoring these particular developments for us. Denis Sassou Nguesso, also the president of Congo Brazzaville, also arriving there, as well as now we hear that King Mswati will also be landing later this evening, and also expecting the Mozambican President Filipe Nyusi to possibly arrive tomorrow. And this as we're tracking all these developments ahead of the inauguration of President-elect Cyril Ramaphosa, as he will be taking that oath of office there for his second term. And a lot of focus, of course, still on the government of national unity. What form will it take? The modalities around them. We also think about the fact that there is still going to be, some of the policy discussions there, as we've seen in that statement of intent by the Democratic Alliance that was also talking about these developments around the Lahota, where they will be discussing some of the policies. And a lot of people keen to see then, what becomes of those discussions and what happens then. So we will continue to bring you all those developments. Be sure to be glued to SABC News even tomorrow, as we will be taking you front and center as to what happens then with the inauguration.